Hello, everybody. This is Heather and Deb, and this is episode 66 Living in Financial Security, the Skeptic and the Mystic. It has been a while since we recorded an episode because our last episode, which was a while back, a couple weeks ago, Deb and I went through the empowered belief coding process, which is a energy clearing process that I had developed through a bunch of different processes. We went through Deb's fear of financial insecurity and wanted to wait until some things happened to do a follow-up, and we're going to do that follow-up now. Everything still hasn't happened that you wanted, but we're going to do the follow-up now because we want you guys to see what happens when we can clear out these energetic blocks and these fears. And you want to hear like straight from Deb, her experience, because she had never experienced the empowered belief coding process before that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I want to say this process, it is super powerful. And with any kind of energy work, there's a compounding effect. Like you get done the session, sometimes you can be like, yeah, that's good. I feel okay. Like feel good. But it's like, as you go through life, you start seeing like, oh, this is differently. And oh, I wasn't bothered by this anymore. And it's so fun because it just keeps the effects keep showing up, in your life. And if one session is great, but if you're doing, multiple sessions, like, and just continuing to work on stuff when you're in a container, like that you have safety in, it's effing powerful. Like it's so powerful when we can work on these deep subconscious blocks. So Deb had not, even though Deb and I worked together before, I had not developed this process at that point. And so this is her experience with that process. So Deb, we worked on, the fear of financial insecurity, and we, by the end, wanted to create the belief of I have a healthy relationship with money.
Yeah.
Right? Tell us just what you experienced, like just a little bit after, and I guess how you're feeling now. We'll start there and then dive deeper.
Right now, I'm like, it's almost comical to hear, because as we talked about off the air before we started, like you have the document up. I didn't go and review like what exactly we had talked about. Obviously, I remember on a high level what we had talked about, but it's interesting that we were working on eliminating a fear of financial insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And I have since put in a notice to leave my job. And I don't yet have a new job specifically secured. Very,
Right.
very close to one. So certainly I can tell, I can feel a shift. And so that above all, and this, I know you and I both talk about this often. That's always what you're going for anyway. The feeling is the manifestation, right? And so I know there is 100% a shift in my perception of my own worth as it pertains to money and earnings. And not this, what is it like? I don't fear being wealthy or think I shouldn't, or, because I think I had some underlying things around that, around like I don't know, because I always historically would always have just enough, and things would happen. Like we've talked about this a bunch of times before, but like stupid things were like, I think this, I'll remember this correctly, but like I wanted to buy a couch and I needed like a couple $1,000s or something. And as it turns out at that time, I ended up getting a nice bonus that was a little over $3,000. Then got in a freaking car accident, had to pay my $1,000 deductible. So I was down to only the $2,000 that I wanted or something, which is just funny. And I remember you said to me, well, did you ask for that or something better or this or more or whatever, however you wanted to phrase it for that particular request? And I was like, no, didn't. So I definitely now it's this or something better. And that's a beautiful way to segue into, I have a very promising new job opportunity in front of me that has been the longest damn interview process I've ever gone through in my life.
Right.
There have been a series of 4 interviews already. I expected that I would already have had an offer by now, and I just got a call to say, "We wanna have one more meeting because we have," I don't know how many, but they have at least more than one candidate that they're very much considering, and so they wanna have one more conversation with me and I don't know how many other people, to narrow it down, and I should have an offer by next week, but, um, that's interesting just in that the way that these things have aligned in their unfolding as far as one job becoming so unbearable and not I don't know if unbearable is the right word. I've known for a long time it wasn't the right thing for me.
Yes. Let's be clear about that. Like, it has been a long time, like a
Yeah,
year at least,
at
right?
least.
You're
Yeah,
like, I don't like this job, but I cannot do anything until I have something else. Like, there's
yeah.
such a place of like scarce, like fear of nope,
Yes.
can't leave. Like that, and you were living in that for a good amount of time.
Right, okay, so that's the beautiful point is nothing has actually changed yet in my bank account if somebody that lives in this world of reality wants to look at it, right?
Right.
And yet I'm like, I can't do this job anymore. I have to put in my notice, regardless if this other one comes through or not. I need to create space for another way of earning money.
Yeah.
And I know that ultimately I still do have this desire to have my own business doing energy healing and Reiki and teaching yoga and the sound therapy and all the things that I love to do. Um, in an ideal world, if I had a great savings account already in place in this moment, then I would just leap into that. It's I'm letting it be revealed right now. That's kind of where I'm at. And it's almost comical that the it's dragging out with this other opportunity. And this
Right.
is again what we were talking about before we even got on air is I know that I'm in a place of like a different a different timeline of myself, I guess, right?
Yes. Yep.
And that we changed something. I had some of those weird moments and like shortly after that where it was like I know these sound wacky to a lot of people, but like I think you've had these experiences where you feel like almost like you just were in a glitch.
Yeah.
And like it's like you jumped into another timeline. Like I've had several of those in the last few weeks. So I'm like, I know that my financial situation is changed. It's I
Yeah.
don't know how I don't know what in what way that's going to completely be revealed yet, but I know that it has changed.
Yeah.
And I overdrew my bank account last week, which just made me laugh, right? Like one of them I got up and I was like, "You have to be kidding me." And then I'm like, I don't know, like look at all this beautiful contrast showing me what I know. Like I don't accept this anymore. I don't accept this level of scarcity that I'm living in. It's sometimes challenging because everything would tell me that I'm still living in it. And yet I'm like, no, I'm not.
And that ultimately, everybody says like, I want to have financial freedom. And okay, well, what does financial freedom mean to you? And they're like, well, if I was making $25,000 a month on passive income, I would have financial freedom. And I tell them, I'm like, bullshit. That it will not. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, because you're going to create a life that you're going to be matching what's going out to that 25,000. And it's going to be like, well, now I need this. And
Yeah.
you're constantly going to be changing the target to, well, when I have this, I'll have financial freedom. When I have this, and you'll keep saying, when these external circumstances are a certain way, then I'll have financial freedom. The reality is financial freedom is when you know that no matter what is happening externally, you can generate money. You can allow money to flow through you, to come through you, to come to you, to leave you, that you are the conduit for money to flow through. That is financial freedom. Because if you say it's got to be, I have it when I have this amount of money, you were anchored down. Like my coach talks about them being like slave anchors, right? You're anchored down, enslaved to that number. That's not
Mhm.
freedom. That's
Right.
okay. Well, the bank account has to be this. So, yep, I have freedom because it's this. But oh shit, it just ducked down. I don't have freedom anymore, right? But when you can just look at the bank account and be like, okay, not the numbers I want, but you know what? I can change that.
Yeah.
That's fucking financial freedom.
That is, and I love, I love that you'll always hear Abraham Hicks and their thing say, um, I mean, I don't know that I hear them say freedom is a choice, but in my mind, freedom is a choice. And they're like, you're so free, you can choose bondage, right?
Yes.
They
Yep.
say that all the time. You're so free, you can choose bondage. And that coupled with, I've started reading some of the work of Frederick Dobson, and then I started reading some of the Seth material. Again, these things are all kind of in that same space, but thinking of in this like in between space where I'm like, okay, I'm waiting to hear, did I get this job? Did I not get this job? And I have the moments where I drop into like, holy fuck, what if I don't get this job? A little bit of panic, fear, whatever. And now my practice has been, okay, go to that space, go be that person for a moment, feel that. And then
Mhm.
I'm like, but what about, okay, now I'm going to think about this person that did create this amount of, and like in that space, I don't necessarily tie it to that job, but just like this amount of freedom, this lifestyle, like I feel that person, I feel a completely different house around me. It's so freaking weird because I can walk around this house that I currently have, and I have moments where like around me, it's a different house. That sounds so, I'm sure, bizarre to people, but I feel it.
Yeah.
There is a different home around me. And so then I'm like, okay, I can make a choice, go drop into this person that's in a little bit of panic and fear, feel into that. And then just like that, I can be over here in this person that's like, I'm living in a beautiful home. I have all this comfort around me. I can provide myself, my daughter with nourishing food. I can do the things that I want to do, and I can just swap back and forth. This comes from, I think, the Frederick Dodson, whatever those books are. Like he kind of says, like, just flip back and forth, and you're like, no, I can just choose to stay in this one. I'm choosing this one. I'm just choosing this one. I just keep choosing this one.
Yeah.
So, and as this, potential job opportunity drags out, I'm like, just keep choosing that one. Just keep choosing that one. Like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
that, because it really comes down to, as wackadoo as it sounds, right? It comes down to things being in like, being in that energy and the frequency, of what that desire. And as you stay in it, like it does take time for the physically to come to you, right? But
Mhm.
manifesting is all about like making something like from nothing into
Right.
something, like taking
Yes.
something and and when people, especially like when people are like, well, the Bible doesn't talk about manifesting or da, da, da. I'm like, okay, let's start at the beginning. In the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God, and God spoke, and there, like, it all came into being. Like,
Yeah.
like, there's so much that happens every single day of just making something that was nothing in something
Well,
that, you know what I mean? Making
yes.
something from nothing, right? Just from having a thought. And when you choose to step into that, and I'm going to step into that energy and step into that energy. And I always give the example of the Wright brothers, right? And yesterday I was talking to a client, and he was like, I need to have, I should have had a realistic vision. And I was like, really? Like, I'm like, were the Wright brothers realistic? I'm like, because to us, we'd say yes, right? Because we see planes flying all the time, right? But
Right.
we've never seen a plane flying. They had the most unrealistic vision ever. And people thought they were crazy, but they weren't focused on reality. They were focused on the vision that they had. And they kept
Yes.
stepping into it. And thank God they did, because now we get to go fly around the world like so
See
easily.
any place we wanna see, right? That's also all relayed in both of these books and these materials I've been reading, and so much of it, what I feel like brings me back into my power in this is just reminding yourself that you are personally responsible for every single thing. So even when I open up
Mhm.
my app and my bank account looks like it's in the negative and I'm like, well, I must have created that, so I'm going to choose differently now. I
Yes,
chose that. Apparently I chose that. So that means I can choose otherwise.
yeah, because what's happening now is a result of your past choices and your past ways of being,
Mhm.
right? And it can change, right?
Yes.
Like, and we tend to think, oh my gosh, this is this. So I'm just going to take it into the future. And we keep taking these things into the future with us. And this is why I love the energy work piece of it so much, because it's like no, I'm cutting it off. I'm
Yes.
not allowing that energy to reside in me anymore.
Yes.
Anymore.
Yes. But I do think whatever we did in that session because you had a bunch of different modalities. The tapping is super powerful for me. I've repeated that one like a
Mhm.
handful of times. I want to, not as much as I wish I would have. I'm probably going to do it between my next conversation for this potential job is on Friday. I'm definitely going to be doing that a couple times in between here and then. But
Mhm.
that I think is a big part of helping me more easily shift into that. Like I think there is some of that stuff that no matter what you want to do with, mindset or your conscious mind, that's all super powerful. And I'm not saying these kinds of shifts can't happen with that kind of work as well, but
Yeah.
I think they are facilitated a lot by this other stuff, right? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to explain how these things work. Is your belief in that system part of why it works? Your belief coupled with my belief, probably even more
Right.
powerful,
Right.
But
But I will still always go back to when I was introduced to the heart wall clearing, I thought it was a bunch of horseshit.
yeah.
Like, I literally was like, "Whatever, you could do it on me, but it's not gonna change anything." So I doubted it 100%,
Yeah.
right? And I tried so many other things, like, "This has gotta work, this has gotta work," nothing, and it was literally getting like, having somebody release my heart wall that I just reluctantly agreed to only to help them because it wasn't going to help me.
Mhm.
So when people are like, "Yeah, you have to believe in it," I'm like, "Yeah, it definitely can help more because it helps you to see things that you might not have seen." But I don't know. Like I remember exactly like the moment when I was laying in my bed and I was like, I don't feel that heaviness in my heart that I was feeling. The only thing that's different is this heart wall stuff.
Mhm.
Maybe there's something there, right?
Right?
And it's crazy because all my clients who like clients that aren't like one-on-one clients, the clients that I have consulting clients with that get sent to me, like they're like, I don't know about this stuff, and I don't even do like the deep woo-woo stuff, with them. I just do like certain peripheral stuff, and they're just like, holy crap, like that was
Yeah.
huge. Like I just get them to drop into their body and get the answers from there, and they're like, wow, that was powerful, you know?
Yes.
And it does something, whether, so I really believe, like, you can doubt, and some people will be like, "Well, I tried it and it didn't really work for me." And I'm like, so I don't think it works. I'm like, "Yeah, I the shifts, it worked." It's just that there's other like, it's always partnerships, like, you have to.
It is, and it's what you choose to see. There's
Yeah,
so much involved in I mean, we've said this one 100 times too, but same with me when I've done especially when I was training in a lot of these things, like you beg your friends to let you do stuff on them, and they're always like, "Whatever, this is stupid, but sure, if it helps you." Same thing you said.
right,
And then they'll be like, "I don't know, I don't really think it did anything." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I haven't heard you bitch about X." And
right, right.
so it did something for me anyway, because I don't have to listen to you whine about that anymore.
And that's why, as you know, and I've said this before, why I do before and after assessments because we
Yeah.
forget, where we were, you know?
Mhm.
So speaking of that, so let me just go back to the sheet and just,
Mhm.
so, when we talked about that fear of financial insecurity, one of the questions was, what does it stop you from doing, or like for doing or being? And it said that, and I want to see I have to pull these. Okay, I have
Yeah.
different screens, so I want to read it and see your face too. It said what you said. It stopped you from doing or from being, and you said from being light and free and open. It stopped you from being the mom that you'd like to be, um, and he said that it creates physical heaviness for you.
Interesting.
How, like, when you hear those, like, what comes up for you?
I don't feel physical heaviness. I definitely feel light and free. Like I think part of that, the making the concrete decision to leave something that does not fit me,
Right.
I mean, how do you not feel lighter when you do that? Regardless of stepping into a huge unknown, which those are usually mildly uncomfortable for me. I find excitement in unknowns usually. Um, the being the mom part, that's an interesting one to reflect on because I get along very well with my daughter Perhaps one of the biggest points of contention, though, is how much she wants to just go get Starbucks coffee all the time or go constantly. Every time I see her, it is like, what can we go buy? And that's been a hard one because, yes, I know I've shifted something. Yes, I know the reflection in the actual numbers in my bank account is coming. I still live in a world where there is a reality piece there, and I don't want to invest our money right now in $10 fucking coffees.
Of sugar and a bunch of stuff that just would not serve her anyway. So
Exactly.
there's
But
wisdom in
there is, but and not to say if I had, 10 times the money, would I think that's a valuable way to spend it? I probably wouldn't. But as I'm trying to live in this new space and the act as if piece, that can be challenging because you can't help me find the verbiage for this because I mean, currently, truly, I'm not going to just go blow $100 on nonsense. I'm not. That's not where I'm at today, even though I know my financial situation is different in that I feel different about it. So that's an interesting one as far as, but back to the real statement of being the mom that I want to be. I still think, I don't know that being the mom I want to be has anything to do with money, to be honest.
right. Yeah. And I'm just pulling up, wanted to see, I know we talked about this before, so forgive me, but I just wanted to see what have you done the Sacred Money Archetypes assessment?
I did it on my own and it came up as nurturer. And I know you asked me what was your secondary one. I don't know. I can't remember if I ever even went that far in the series of information. Nurturer was what came up first, which probably makes sense based on what I just said.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. So, and sometimes it's not so much like some of it is just our hardwiring. And like, I think about if I had won the Powerball lottery last week, seriously, at $2 billion, one person won it. Did you hear about that? Yes.
No, I don't follow it. Like,
gosh.
Every once in a blue moon, I hear about it and I'll go buy a lottery ticket. Half the time, like I don't think, I guess my belief in the lottery is not a strong one as far as that being my path to wealth, but
right.
Yeah.
But I think about that and I'm like, even if I won that, like, it's just not who I am, that I would just go throw money, at like stuff that wasn't like my standards of what I'm spending my money on is like, it's got to nurture me. It's got to, it wouldn't just be like frivolous stuff. And that's just
same
by how I'm designed.
Yeah.
So
I was talking with one friend recently about some luxury car show she was watching and she's naming off types of cars. And I'm like, I have no idea what that even is. And I think even if I had, celebrity kind of money, I can't imagine I would buy 15 weird exotic cars. Like it just, to me, I don't even have a goal to be that level of wealthy anyway, to be honest. I don't need that much. But yeah, I don't think I would love to be the person, this goes probably with the nurturer archetype, but I would love to be the person that if there were a concert or something that I wanted to go to and I wanted to invite my friends and they were like, oh, I really couldn't buy a $200 ticket right now, I would love to be like, no big deal. I got your ticket. It's cool.
Right. Yeah. Would you buy more stuff for like sound bath healing?
I would buy more tools for that. Yes, absolutely. Right. I would buy better bowls. I would buy more instruments.
Yeah, because you're nurture, and for you, your money making decisions a lot of times is how can this nurture somebody? How can this care for somebody? And even though it's your daughter, there's a party that innate knows like this is not nurturing to her. So no, because if she was like, hey, can you, I want to do a Reiki session or something, like, be a different like thought. She
wants an electric guitar right now. And that I'm like, I'm willing to buy you a decent starter electric guitar. I need a little guidance on exactly what that is. So I have a friend's going to help me. But like that, I'm like, I want to find a way to have the money to get that for her.
Right.
Because I know my kid, she may like it for about a month and then forget about it. So I'm not going to buy the top of the line right away. But that to me feels like if she has a creative spirit and she wants to, express it musically, I'm fully supportive of that.
Yeah. 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 And so that fits into your archetype, which like is a whole other conversation, but it
Yeah.
understanding your money archetype helps exponentially to understand how you can like what your empowering and disempowering behaviors are. And that's a whole like I'm working on recreating my course, and that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that later. But
Yeah.
one of the things when we did the session with you, like you talked about when you had that belief of financial insecurity, that there was some negative beliefs attached to it, and they were like, why do I clearly have some belief that I need to barely squeak by,
Yeah.
and like, what the f, why can't I crack this code?
Yeah.
How do those beliefs feel for you right now?
I feel like on one level I've knocked them out, and I'm still in the waiting for the proof.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
really feel like that is coming. Like, I feel like there is no question in my mind. The only question mark is it this job that I'm like teetering on, or is it something else?
Mm-hmm.
That's the piece I don't quite know yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But the fact that you can be in a place of uncertainty and have certainty, that's what everybody wants. It's not the money, it's not, because there are, I've flown on private jets with people. I have literally spent lots of time around millionaires, right? And not saying because you're a millionaire, you're going to feel like this, but they having millions of dollars doesn't mean having peace, having contentment, having a confidence in yourself, having a love and connection for yourself. And ultimately, that's what everybody wants. It's not the money, it's the feelings. Because when you have the feelings, you can go generate it anytime. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's, I got to hold on to this, because again, if my external world doesn't match up what I think it should be, then I'm going to be in a tizzy, where you're like, okay, external doesn't match up, but you know what? Like, I got this.
Mhm.
That's the magic.
Yeah.
And if we can have both of those, right? Like, that's when it gets really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want to piggyback on something you said earlier too, though, where like the concept of somebody saying, if I just make 25K a month, I'll be happy. Because I have been listening to Abraham Hicks almost nonstop lately, because it does kind of help me, like help
Yeah.
keep me,
Did I tell you that I met and saw them?
I saw your post. I do want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to talk about it on this podcast, but yes, I did see your thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to ask about that. Because I've never seen them live.
Mm.
But anyway, I do love the idea that they will always remind you that it's never done. So like, even if your goal is 25K a month is going to make me happy, you're going to get there, and then you're going to want something else. So being okay with the idea that like, right now, all I want to know is, did I get this job? And when I
Right.
get it, I'm going to be very happy for several days.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to be in the reality of this fucking job. And I'm going to be like, I want more. And that's okay.
Right. Right. And that's what we forget, that it's all a process. It is expansion into the embodiment,
Mhm.
living in the embodiment, integrating it, like being it. Actually, that's what embodiment means, right? Embodying it. And then, oh, now there's this next level of embodiment,
Right.
right?
But
And
but then there is a satisfaction, right? So like, I think some people hear that and they think, so you're never going to be satisfied. But like, the other piece of it that I feel like has really, really, really been apparent for me is letting it be fucking fun.
yes. Mhm.
Because even like I said, I gave the example. I woke up one morning and I'm like, my bank account's really in the negative. And I literally just laughed. I'm like, well, this is funny. And like, okay, let's see how much fun I can have rectifying that as quickly as possible. And it took me about 40 minutes to turn that around.
Right.
So that was, I mean, it's, and then I was like, haha, that's fun. And then I called the bank just out of curiosity, and I was like, "Can you return the overdraft fee?" And they were like, "Sure, you've been a great standing customer, whatever. Put it back."
Nice.
And I was like, "Ding, there's another
Awesome. Yeah. And the more fun that you have, the more you're in pleasure, right? The more that you get more of that,
one." Right.
right? But we're in that energy of like, oh, this has to be hard. And that is such a big one. I mean, so many people I work with, when it comes to money, when it comes to life, it's like, no, this should be hard. Like, and if it's
Well,
not hard, then I'm not
and
doing it right.
taking that example, I think, again, I had a choice in how to see that. And there is a version of me that would have freaking dissolved into tears. Like, you have to be kidding me. What the fuck? And then probably something else would have come out and it would have just kept spiraling into worseness. Right.
I love that
So,
word.
but like, then, like, again, I think there's power in how you respond.
It's everything. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, and I may have told you this before, but when my relationship with money has been, just like many people's, like evolving and growing, right? That, I think about a kid, I don't really have a relationship with money. It's like I did my chores, I got money, I spent it. But when I started like having to fill out loans for college, that's when I remember like, and I don't remember ever like, no, I don't deserve this money. I was like, I'm going to fill out a loan and I'm going to get this money. Like there was no, but the filling out the loan was the loan forms was like, I'm not smart enough. I'm too stupid. I don't understand this. Right. And so that's where
Yes.
so much of my money stuff has come from.
Mhm.
And that's just been like a core thing of like, don't want to feel stupid, don't want to look stupid. And when I got my buyout from my bakery, I got $120,000, which, some people will be like, that's not that much, but like for 2 years of, creation stuff, yeah, that was a great amount of money. Right.
Mhm.
And I went to a financial advisor for help with it. And I don't want to sound like that kind of girl, but like it was a guy and he was just like, well, if you had 250,000, we can help you, but that's just not even that much. And it just deflated me so much. And I didn't know what to do with the money. And I ended up spending it like so much. And I invested so much of it into myself and my growth, which is obviously worth it. Right. But then it was still like, oh, I'm not smart enough. I couldn't be smart enough to handle this. And so when I went to, business mastery, or no, it was wealth mastery, Tony Robbins event, wealth mastery, which I spent a good amount of money on because I was like, oh, this will help me and give me the
Mhm.
information that I need.
Mhm.
No, it did not at all. Like I think about the work that I do with people, and not to be cocky, but I'm like, this is so much more helpful, right? Because you go there and it's a bunch of like, and I'm going to sound like that person again, but like a bunch of old white men telling
Yeah.
you how to invest in money. And I'm like, I'm not even there. Like, tell
Well,
me,
and I think they have a very narrow it's done one way view. And this
right,
is one thing in my personal current experience. There's a gazillion ways to do everything.
right,
There's nobody's one right way,
right,
right?
right,
And you must have shifted some beliefs around that because, like obviously you have because you've worked on it. But going back to when somebody tells you something like, well, if you had, twice as much money, then maybe we could help you. And your automatic self-talk is to be like, oh gosh, I'm not good enough. Like, again, choices. I was watching, this is a totally like different example, but have you watched Love is Blind at all on Netflix?
No, I've seen like saw a preview of it, but that's it.
Shameful. Like, I start watching it and then I'm like, it's such an interesting way to look at humans. It's a bullshit show. Like a lot of it's just, but then like you start watching it and it's like you can't look away.
Right.
Um, but there was one particular girl on there who I was watching, this whole situation play out. I don't think I'm gonna give away any spoilers. I'll try to be careful for anyone that hasn't watched the whole thing yet. But she basically blames a guy for single-handedly destroying her self-confidence.
Right.
And as I hear this, I think, well, you chose that, because if no other person can do X to you unless you subscribe to it.
Right. And I'm going to that because that's where I was going with my
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was at Business Master or Wealth Mastery, and all these, men are talking about this stuff, and I'm like, I just need help making money right
Yeah.
now. And I literally sat through that thing and cried for days. Like I
Yeah.
just cried through it, right? And since then, I've done so much work. And here's the crazy thing: the more that you work on your self love and respect and confidence, the more that the relationship with money does shift and change. Where I was like, yes, I can receive money, but I had a big aha recently where I was like, oh my gosh, I realized that I don't trust myself with it. And so that's why it's always like I can have enough, right? But like anything extra, it was it was so massive when I was like, holy crap, this is why I just like, yes, I'll take just enough, but I just don't trust myself with it. And so now I can look back and see why I let that guy deflate me. And instead of
Yes.
saying to him, oh, okay, you can't help me. Great. I'm going to find somebody who can. I'm going to learn how to do this myself. Like instead, I just was like, why? I just cried and I thought I was like helpless. And I was giving away to everybody else. Like they have to help me instead of being like, wait, do I trust myself with this? Right.
Mhm.
And, I did an empower belief coding session on myself. And I was like, I totally can trust myself with money. Like I can
Yeah.
totally do this. I can learn and it's no big deal. Right. But there
Yeah.
was so much of that, like internally, like inside of me of like, nope, can't. And it's like I said, it's not the could have said, I trust myself with money. I trust myself with money. I trust myself with money. Inside of me was like, no, you don't. Bullshit.
Right,
Right.
right.
So I did that work to shift that energy out. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the past, like, yeah, made some dumb decisions. It's all right.
Yeah.
I got this. Like that, my past doesn't determine my future at all when it comes to money.
That's a good one. Your pat like you yeah. Yeah, exactly. You can just choose a new thing right now. Whatever was in the past is in the past.
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah,
but that like you can choose, like I hear that and I know the old me was like, yeah, I can just choose. And I just thought that was such BS. And it
yeah,
is true. And you may have some things that are preventing you from just choosing, like
of course. Yeah,
energy that's stuck. But once you can clear that out, then it's like, oh, I'm just going to choose to be different.
yeah, yeah,
And like if you're feeling like, oh, I can't choose, that is an indicator that you have some trapped emotions that are stuck inside of you that literally are stopping you from being able to choose. And we got to
yes,
clear that out. Like
yeah,
we have to get that cleared out.
yeah, and that's not an overnight process because if you I mean, like, it is interesting because I mean, we've known each other for years now, and between work you did on me, work I've done on myself, getting, stuff with other practitioners, there's been a lot of excavating.
Mhm.
Um, but these moments where you notice, like, so concretely that something is different are so fun because even back to the example of this job that I'm, sitting on the edge of, when I first applied for it because I had a little bit of inside information into what the salary range was. I know a different version of me would have initially been like, because it's more than I've ever made, you
Mhm.
know, and I would have before looked at it and been like, oh, I must not be qualified for that. And I might have like been like, forget it, I'm not going to apply or whatever. I know I've done that in the past. And
Mhm.
I'm currently sitting in the job I'm about to leave at a salary that is not sustainable. And
Mhm.
yet that's from a salary standpoint, it is the most I've made yet to date, but it's now like it's not where I see my value anymore. And
Right.
to have looked at a new number and not even questioned that fuck yeah, I should go for that job, that right there is a big shift for me.
Yeah. Big
You
one.
know?
Yeah. It is awesome and big. And
Yeah,
I want to acknowledge that and just be like, yay.
right.
It's big.
Right.
I,
But those
I want
are the things for people to gut check is like when you see something or someone tells you something and you have that mm, like there's just some stuff in the way, but it can be moved.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to, Marta asked this question. I want to throw this up on the screen because I think it's really beneficial and I think it's, very valid. Right.
I
So
100% believe that yes,
yeah.
there's
So
the crap
let me
our
read
parents carried in, whether or not they consciously taught it to us or just carried it in their bodies and it got passed into our bodies. And I think
well,
race and
let me
culture.
read it out loud. Let me read it out loud so that the people who are not watching, right?
Yes.
So it says, aside from our beliefs we've made in this lifetime about money, I do think the previous generation's blueprint about money are in our DNA and frequency. And I think that's harder to transform. What are your views on that? Okay, go ahead now. Just,
I agree. No, I agree. I probably will let you speak on, I have my thoughts about like treatments. I hate that word, but like I couldn't think of a better one right now. But I think for sure that that stuff gets carried. Like if you've followed Bruce Lipton and epigenetics, and like there's just like so much of that that we don't even realize is passed down. And I think there's also so much that comes from your culture and the history of your culture's experiences with that, and yeah, your family. I mean, I know that there's been for me personally a lot of undoing around poverty and scarcity that I've had to kind of release. And I can see it so obviously in some family members, and then others that clearly it's actually like very much a divide between one side of my family and my maternal and paternal sides. I can just witness it in how the younger generations live on either
right.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some exceptions, but I think that's true. I think that's very true. But
Yeah. So
yeah.
there's absolute truth. I mean, we can look at cultures, we look at the Jewish culture, right? And there are character traits, right, that are passed down. A lot of shame, like still happening, in that culture, that has come from generation to generation of what the Jewish culture endured, right? You can see these character traits, and
But yet there's a stereotype that Jewish people are often quite wealthy.
right. Well, I mean, just shame overall, right? And
Yeah.
just like who they are and stuff like that, right? And yeah, wealthy because it's like I gotta hold on to this, right? Because there was so much scarcity.
Oh,
Right.
true. So I guess there's also, I mean, these are stereotypes. I'm not saying we agree with these.
Right.
Just want to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah. Stuff does get passed down. And that's
Yeah.
why people are like, well, everybody in my family. I want us to be careful and notice, right, that we like, oh, well, then this is hard to transform. Once we've latched on to that belief of like, this is hard to change, right? Then we just keep bringing that. Like,
Yeah.
and what if we were like, well, what if I could change that in an instant? What if
Yes.
I became aware of this thought that I've been carrying around that wasn't mine, that went back generations and generations. And I just decided, like, I'm going to move that out of my body.
I think that goes for health too. If
Right.
you think, you know, I can't even think of a disease. I mean, cancer is always a good example as far, not good, but like if you think cancer runs in your family, that every woman in your family gets breast cancer, you automatically, just by believing that every woman in your family has this fate, you are so much more likely to also have that fate.
Yeah. Yeah. You chose it. I know my family and diabetes runs in the family, and I've had cousins be like, well, everybody runs in the family. And I'm like, I'm not turning on that switch. That's why
No, exactly. It literally,
switch.
that's so oversimplified, but the more that I practice that, I'm like, it is a switch. And I can say this with being a complete example of my family that always gets a long list of ailments that I
Right.
miraculously didn't get.
Yes. And so there's a lot when it comes to family and money stuff. And it's in my Sweet Money Freedom course, like we unpack this, like a lot of the money, family, you know what I mean? I can't say the word, family stories around money, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, if I have more money, like who's going to be mad at me? Who will I lose? What relationships will I lose? Like there are things around that, but if we make the choice and say, yeah, there are some things, and I'm going to let this healing be easy, right? That can shift and change, change things. So let me just say, she says, I'm referring to the frequency that you're not even aware of. The thought patterns are something tangible to work on, but what about the unknown energy weighing us down? Yeah. And so that's where like doing the work, like literally putting yourself in environments of people who are working through this, because then you're like, oh my gosh, wait, you hear something and you're like, that is something that I've carried around. Like I said, like where I was just identified, wait, I don't trust myself with money, because I was in a group, where people are working on this stuff. And this woman said this thing about, she's like, I always manifest money after I've spent it. And I was like, holy shit balls. Like, on, right? And as they were talking through it and talking about like her reason for doing that, and I was like, that's not my reason. And came through me eventually what my reason was. Like, when you make the conscious decision to heal the money stories that you may not even know what they are, they will start to come up. Right.
Yeah.
And as like from working with me, Deb, and stuff, like I'll send a list of people and be like, here's a list of statements, go through and rate them, like see how they feel. Right. And we start working through those things, because sometimes some people's like statements, there's one statement that for you may be like an energetic charge of a 10, somebody else is a 0, but it just took seeing that statement. But in order to bring it to the unknown to the known, you have to put yourself in the environment of people working through that stuff, so that it can shed light on it, because the only time it can be healed is when light is shed on it.
Yeah. I will say also, since I have become Reiki attuned and working with people one-on-one for Reiki sessions, and that's like a completely different practice than what I've done in the past. And when I am working on someone in a session, and normally I do these like in person, I haven't done a lot of virtual ones, but sometimes I will get certain, just messages, images, something that I think might help them with that conscious awareness. But sometimes it really is like a very subtle, I think maybe along the lines of what she might have been referring to, where sometimes it really is almost like a very subtle clearing of some of these things that are just down deep and lodged in our bodies. And this is an energy that will help move it and release it. And we don't necessarily always have to bring it up into our thinking mind and process it. I think they're complementary, right? I don't know. People have different views on that, but personally, I do think it works. And again, it's not going to be something that's like overnight. You're going to go to one Reiki session and all of a sudden all of your freaking 13 generations of trauma around money are resolved. It's not that simple.
Right. Well, and it's like when you start resolving the known ones, right? It's peeling back layers of the onion. You start resolving the known ones, and then you're like, oh, okay, there's this one. Oh, okay, there's this one. Right? Yeah. So, okay. So I want to wrap this up, is that you can see Charlie's in the background, like, it's time to go out. It's time to go play.
Oh, he knows you're talking about him. All I have are sleepy rabbits taking baths. They still can't be seen. There they are.
They're so cute. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Charlie's like, now that daylight savings has changed, we always go out like around 5 o'clock. So now like 3:30, he starts staring at me, because that would be 4:30, normally. And he just looks at me like, can we go out? Can we go out? Can we go out? So yeah. So if you're hearing this and be like, oh my gosh, I have so many blocks around money, right? Like I am, and I haven't told you about this, Deb. We spent a bit, then we talk. Like I have this new course that I am working on that is going to be amazing, where we're going to work on the energetic blocks. Like you'll get one-on-one time with me to clear this stuff out. We're also going to be, there's going to be video modules of branding and marketing and like pricing and like all this amazing stuff, like in understanding your sacred money archetype and how that plays into your relationship with money. So much. There's so much stuff in this course I'm so excited about. So that'll be coming out in the next couple of months. I'm hoping like early next year. There's a lot of stuff that I need to do for it. But, but even in the meantime, if you're like, have some things that you're specifically like, I feel really blocked on this, let's get on the phone. Let's do an empowered belief coding session. Because as you can see with Deb, like, yeah, the money totally isn't there yet, but she has that peace and certainty that is what ultimately we're going for. And we want the money, right? But if you're sitting there and be like, yeah, but it didn't really work because you didn't have the money. Like when you can get in that energy that she's in now of just like, I got this, it'll be okay. Like that is effing amazing. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So like, reach out to either of us. Let's get your heart wall cleared out. Let's clear out that energy, because you have so much to offer the world, and being stuck and held back by these things that are just weighing you down is not the life that you're meant to live at all.
Right.
It's really not. So you just got a message. David said you two are back. Yes, we are. We're back,
Took us
David.
a bit. Took us a minute.
We're
And,
back.
by the
Wow.
next time we record, we'll have some more definitive,
Yeah.
answers on something. I will say even just months ago, I did have this, like, prediction of I'm not going to be in this job by the end of the year. I just remember that. That just was like, "Remember you said that?" Came back to my mind.
Mhm.
Um, and here we are. I'm not going to be in my current job by the end of this year. And I didn't even have to know for sure what was next.
Yes, yes, when you can be in that. Yeah. Oh, what? So one more, and just put this up. Sorry, I know we said we're leaving, but I think the focus on clearing and getting aligned works better than trying to constantly manifest.
I agree with
Yes.
that too, because the alignment, the feelings, this is what we say all the time. That's the manifestation. People
Mhm.
get mixed up in I'm trying to create like it's everything we've just been saying, right? The I'm trying to create the external proof is not really what you're trying to create.
Right.
You're trying to feel
Right.
good. That's what you're trying to do is feel good.
Yeah. It's a feeling that you're going for
Yeah.
always.
Uh-huh.
When you can really grasp that, even though people are like, no, but I want this thing. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It,
Right.
yeah. Yeah. So from that feeling point, like then all those other things come. So
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Thank you all for tuning in and for listening. And we're going to have some fun news. But this really ultimately, Deb, is the most fun news. So I don't like whether you get the job or not. Like, I don't care. It's more that you are stepping into this power of like, you got this no matter what.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
awesome. Yay.
Yay.
Okay. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.